Hey, I'm Kai, and today I just want to go through my pedalboard build for 2025. I had a few reasons that I wanted to rebuild my last board, but really the main things were that I wanted to add some new stuff that I tried out last year, as well as improve the signal flow to give me a bit better versatility. I've also switched over to solderless cables for the first time after having used Rockboard flat patch cables for the past 8 years or so. I found that they worked really nicely and I never had one fail on me, however it did cause me some issues with the tightly packed pedalboard as they just weren't as low profile as I needed them to be. So I've spent the past couple of months building out an autism-fueled Photoshop document of my pedalboard. Since not many of these pedals are available at all on any of the pedalboard builders online, I had to go my own route with it to make sure it was all okay. I'll throw the time lapse up on screen now. The whole process took me about an hour and a half. Overall, I'd say the build process actually went pretty smoothly. I think these solderless patch cables were a lot easier to assemble than I had anticipated. It took me about 50 minutes to do all of them, which was 38 ends or 19 cables. The packs that I bought were from Pedal Patch and they came with 16 meters of cable. I used about maybe 6 or 7 meters for this build, so I've still got plenty left over for future stuff. I love rebuilding my pedalboard and it is super zen and super relaxing, right up until you get to those little pinch points. For me, this was my Photoshop document not being scaled correctly. This meant that I had a little bit less space to work with than I thought I did, which then in turn gave me additional issues mounting the power supplies underneath, as I'm using the Timelapse sort of screw-in mounts on this, and it needs the screws on the top half of the pedalboard. The power supply I'm using on this one, by the way, is the Harley Benton modular power supply. I've got 3 of them running all connected underneath. Another minor issue that I bumped into when I was building this board is that all of my power cables were just slightly too long, giving a great big rat's nest under the board. Since the time-lapse video, I did shuffle quite a lot of things around just to make sure that everything was nice and evenly spaced. I also swapped out all of the power cables so that they're a lot shorter now. Let's start with my signal path. There is an awful lot to cover here, and even in this video I'm not going to be able to get to everything, but I'll do my best. The first thing to mention is that for the purposes of this video, I'm running through the Fractal FM3, where I've got a couple of different amps set up. I'm mainly going to be using the JCM 800 and the Recto. The guitar I'm using is my PRS S2, retrofitted with an Evertune bridge, Seymour Duncan Pegasus and Sentient pickups. The first thing my guitar hits after running into the Temple Audio 4X mod on the right hand side of the board is the Demiurge Dumio. This is first in my chain before any of the other pedals because this one has a tendency to squeal when it's placed after a buffer. After that, I'm running into the Peterson Strobo Stomp tuner. This is the best tuner that I've found, including all of the modelers that I've tried. From there, I'm running into the Fortin Zool Plus Noise Gate's key input. This means that the gate will only trigger when I'm playing my guitar. This keeps it super tight. From there, we're going into the new brains of the pedal board. This is the Bright Onion Pedals Dual Reverse Looper. This gives me 2 separate effects loops that I can reverse the orders of as well as bypass each of them individually. In the first loop I've got all of my other gain pedals, the Guptech Mad Shoe, the Life is Unfair Bad Machine, the Holy Island Audio Mountain Mover and the God City Instruments Pariah. I've done demos of all of these separately, so if you really want to dig into them, I'll leave links in the description box down below. The second loop in the dual reverse looper is going to be the HX1, the Electro Harmonics small clone, and the Holy Island Audio Tides. Swapping the order of the loops with the Bright Onion Pedals looper means that I get an extra position for the HX1. This means that I can run something like an octave before all of my drives, and then something like a flanger after my drives. I just display this one with the flanger and swap the positions so you can hear the difference that it makes. You'll notice that in the default position with the drive running into the flanger, we get an extreme sounding flanger, but if we reverse it, it makes the flanger a lot smoother. This also expands the versatility of the other pedals in the loop, of course, including the Tides pedal. I can now run a drive before or after the Tides. In the traditional setup where we're running the boost pedal into the Tides, we get a really nice natural clean sounding reverb, but if we reverse them we end up getting a really dirty reverb sound, which is already what the Tides is doing, but this just turns it up to 11. The dual reverse looper then runs out to the input of my amplifier. There are a few things on my board that are set up with the effects loop in mind, so I've switched over amps to the Recto to show this better. The first one is the Zool Plus, and as mentioned previously, this is keyed by my dry guitar sound. I'm going to boost the Recto using the Guptec Mad Shoe and then use the Zool gate to just tighten it up a little bit. Also in the effects loop, I've got the HX1 running through again, as the HX1 has its own effects loop. It's very complicated, but just trust me, the HX1 is running in the effects loop as well. I'm going to use the retro reel in this, into the Wampler Doctor, and then into the Mua Reverb R7. I'll also switch amps back to the JCM 800. So that is the abridged run through of this pedal board, so drop a comment down below letting me know one pedal you liked and one pedal that I'm missing from this board. Also, I'd appreciate it if you could subscribe to my channel so that you can stick around for more future videos like this. I will do one more final tone just now that I've introduced the whole board, just play around with something and see what comes out. time for me to wrap things up into a nice little conclusion. The first thing I want to say is that solderless cables really made this board an awful lot cleaner and much easier to work with on the rebuilding stage. The smaller form factor meant that I'm not trailing cables over the back of the board for something like the HX1 for instance, and I definitely wouldn't have been able to make the dual reverse looper work with the original cables. Speaking of, I love the dual reverse looper. I think it's really added a lot of versatility to my pedal board. I do have a couple of negatives. I may swap out some of these drive pedals because I've currently got clean boosts and extreme high gain fuzzes with not really that much in between. So I may swap out the Pariah for the Earthquaker Devices plumes that I've got, and I might even swap the Doomio for the Holy Island Audio Spectral Fire. That remains to be seen. I sort of expected all of these to be able to cover a lot of range, and most of them are just flat out high gain, especially the Doomio. So that is everything that I've got for this video. Thank you ever so much for watching it all the way through to the end. I do really appreciate it. There'll be a link on screen for you to check out another one of my videos. Other than that though, that's all for this one. I've been Kai.